Hi there, I'm Kieran from UK Cisco and I'm here interviewing Ryan Flakes Oliver. How you doing, Ryan?
Pretty good. I'm pretty tired. It's been a long day, but I'm doing okay.
So we're currently at Epic Land 19 and we are your admin and maybe featuring casting.
Maybe casting. I think this event for me is just like me taking a break with my voice for the most part, but I'm pretty much running the CS tournament with Jazz. Well, Veracity.
So you say you're taking a break, so what actually events are you attending in the near future?
I've got WSG Brazil coming up, so I'm going to be flying to Brazil pretty much just after this event to do the South American stuff. I've also got possibly like other events I can't really mention too much going on at the moment, but I've got some really nice events coming up, like some decent events that should be more heard about soon.
Okay, so you mentioned WSG, which is obviously involved in StarLadder. So what actually made you get involved in StarLadder and how did that come about?
I didn't really apply for a job with StarLadder. I just started casting more and more because I was involved with like the UK CSGO community. So I started casting to fill a spot for a caster, and then just kept on casting day in day out. And I think 6 months later, or in that time, or within the 6 months or so, I ended up working for Multiplay for the UK Masters Season 1. And I casted with Crossy and a couple of others, but it got to the point where eventually I ended up cancelling UK Masters every week to go and cast for other companies. I was casting for eFrag day in day out, like daily, for the most part, and then it just transitioned into one day me being told, hey, can you fly to Ukraine tomorrow to come do some studio work? And then off the back of that I got offered a job, and I work from
Yeah, because I can remember us actually speaking about that. So you've actually been casting with Tom. So was you kind of prepared to be matched together, or was it kind of out of the blue, as you said, one day to fly to Ukraine?
I've known Tom for a little while because we casted on eFrag here and there, but I mean, we casted 3 or 4 games and that was it. And then it was basically like they needed someone to come and do the female event. I think the teams that I remember were Reason Gaming female played in it, for example. So I was going to fly out and do that, but then they found someone else within a short enough time frame because I didn't get back to them quick enough. But then the next event that came around, the StarLadder LAN, I got offered a spot to do that, and so I flew out to Ukraine, did the StarLadder qualifiers leading up to it, and then did the main LAN off the back of that.
Yeah, because obviously you was involved with quite big names, and how did it feel to actually work with people like Redeye, for example, who's been in this injury since the start?
It gives you a pretty big sense of like shoes to fill because you have a lot of pressure on your shoulders to be like up and coming, like hotshot basically. Because when you go into an event like that, everyone's like, oh, you're this up and coming caster, like you're going to do amazing. So I do think that like 9 out of 10 your first event does go to trash. Like I know for me, my first event at StarLadder LAN, it didn't go very well at all, but I think that it's pretty much coming down to you trying to fill their shoes, and the biggest mistake you can make as a caster is trying to fill someone else's shoes. You just have to go into it being yourself and do what you do best, which is just cast your own way, and then that shows.
Yeah, so previously you mentioned about being involved in the UK CS scene and you got that casting opportunity via that. So we're actually currently at APIC 19, and so what is your preview towards this event?
I think that this event is going to be an interesting one because we've got a different format. We've got a pretty interesting kind of seeding and kind of arrangement in terms of how the match is going to be played out. So I do think that this could make up to be one of the most competitive LANs of the year, but it's relying on certain teams showing up. And the problem we have right now is that if, say, for example, some of these mixed teams just disappear off the face of the earth and basically play terribly, then we could look at what could be a very one-third event where we pretty much have a set top 3, and then outside of the top 3, well, it's not going to be that exciting. So it pretty much depends on a couple of teams.
So who do you actually think is going to win this event?
That's a tough question. I do currently look towards a mixture of eFrag, possibly the Rasta lineup, depending on how they play. You could bring in Vatic as well. I think Vatic have been playing kind of very, very well recently. I would like to kind of almost mention the kind of underdogs per se, which is like Bulldog. I think Bulldog, they hugely deserve their seed. I do think they deserve that, and I stand by that seed wholeheartedly because the players they've got individuals, yes, they've made a change, but for the most part, that's a stable roster. That's a roster that's been together for a little while now, and they have had some nice results. They've had some pretty impressive stuff in comparison to some of the other smaller online teams, like you look at IGI, for example.
So what is your actual background in CS? Because obviously I've known you for quite a while now and worked with you personally, but some people obviously you've come from quite an unknown background to be quite a big name in casting. So what is your actual background?
It's a bit weird, like it's a big name in casting. I don't think I'm that big at all. I got lucky break and I'm trying to make the most of it. But when it comes down to like being known as a caster, I'd say my background pretty much came from, I played CSGO for 2-3 years on and off. I took like the second and third year, mostly the third year relatively competitively. And it pretty much, because I was in a situation where I wasn't in education, wasn't doing anything, I pretty much like no life the hell out of the game. So I was playing 12 to 15 hours days.
Yeah.
Just playing non-stop. Like you know that because I used to play with you, I used to play with a couple other guys in the UK, and I pretty much would just play, I was playing, I think 150, 160 hours every 2 weeks. just playing so much. And that's pretty much where I came from. Like, just
So, with you being actually involved in the UKCS, we've obviously got county champs run by UKCSGO. What do you think that's actually good for the scene and how it's been all split up?
I think it's good to the scene for a certain extent. I do think that there needs to be a little bit of a limit when it comes down to how many teams per region, because you are going to get to a point where, as much as there are a certain amount of silence in a region, there is this kind of level of oversaturation where you do then force players to go out of boundaries of being a mix into what could be kind of just complete unknowns. But then there is like the kind of pro to that, which you're throwing complete random guys you've never met before, getting them to socialise and network, which kind of does help grow the borders of the UK scene.
Well, because obviously you've been a captain, and I'm not sure if you can actually mention who you've picked, but could you?
Well, I mean, I picked Logan, but then Blanks decided that we had to have another team in the Kent region, so he stole Logan to make him a captain. So nice one, Blanks.
Well, actually, I'm a part of that team now, so.
I think you joined Logan's team. I don't know. I kind of looked through the rosters, tried to pick some of the good players that I could come up with, and then they pretty much all, I think they've all left to join other teams. So I have to have a look. So if you play from the UK, and you're part of the Kent region, feel free to tweet me or something, and we'll.
Or you can tweet Logan and
Yeah,
join my team.
I mean, you could do. I think like the biggest thing for the county champs is just to play with a group of people that you enjoy playing with and see if you can learn something as a player, because the county champs is an opportunity for a lot of the newer players to play with players they'd never usually play with. So in terms of kind of the top tier, top dogs, they don't get to play in their 5-man stacks of mixers going into LAN. So it does kind of break down the barriers of the old guard coming to LAN every single time. Because you look at Rasta, for example, for the most part, that's a fairly standard mixed team in the UK. It's kind of the top 30 players, jumbling in the pot, seeing what's left, and then coming up to LAN with those. Whereas I do think the county champs, as much as it's not as serious, there's like no prize pool, there's no LAN finals, no nothing like that. I do think there is an element of giving kind of opportunity to younger players to try and show something.
So I'm going to leave you with a final question. It's going to be a bit of a curveball and not in our plans.
Okay.
Who's your favourite writer in UK CSGO to work with?
I would say Blanks, because he's probably the only one who does actually any work.
Well, Blanks is quite happy with that response, and I'm Smith Media here at Epic 19.